Alright guys, welcome back to another video! So today is super exciting because we're going to be upgrading my toaster of a computer. Finally, man. I've been running this same old setup for 3.5, almost 4 years now, I think. And it's an FX 6300 on a Gigabyte motherboard with a Gigabyte R390 or 380X video card. As you can see here today, I've only got a new motherboard, CPU, and RAM. That's the bare minimum that I need to be able to upgrade something on here to make my computing experience just a little bit better. I mean, I'm downgrading from 16 gigs of RAM to 8 gigs of RAM, but it's also DDR4. I think I'm not really going to notice that too much. This is only temporary as well. I'm going to be picking up some 32 gig RAM here shortly. This whole pandemic that's going on right now is making it difficult to order parts and get them here in a timely manner. So I found these locally from some dude for 20 bucks. Ryzen 5 3600 non-X variant, just because I can overclock it myself, and I think the way this PC desk is set up, it's not going to run too hot in here. So I don't necessarily need the upgraded cooler, and if I do want to upgrade the cooler, I can get a much better one than the Spire version from the 3600X, from a different brand, for about the same price as it would have been to upgrade to the X variant. It's a Gigabyte B450M DS3H motherboard, which is confirmed to work with the 3rd gen Ryzen. And the reason I went with that is because I needed a micro ATX motherboard to fit in this desk. On top of that, the PCIe slot on another version of the Gigabyte board that I saw that was micro ATX was moved down one slot, which would not have worked because this is a custom built desk and it has to be in that location for the video card to be able to be installed. I'm not upgrading the hard drive currently. I will be getting a WD Black 500 gig NVMe SSD to go on to the new motherboard at some point. But until I order that and the video card, I'm also going to be ordering a new power supply at some point. But we're just going to start off with these upgrades, and I figured this would be a good video to do because I haven't really gone too in depth about how my desk is put together other than some pictures. And I feel like that might be a good way to get the point across of how involved it was to build this. You know, how exact the measurements had to be and how tightly fit everything is in here. Like you'll notice I have to unbolt the motherboard entirely to remove the video card. So we'll get to that. I have to pull the desk out away from the wall a little ways to get behind and unplug things from the I/O panel. I could just lay underneath the desk on the ground and do it, but I'd like to have a little bit of wiggle room just to be able to get my hands in there a little bit better. So the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to shut down the PC, and I'm going to clean off the desk, and then we're actually going to, before we move the desk out, we're going to clean it because the last time I took the dust filtration off, I did not have any to put back on. And you can see where the intake fans are here on this side. That's dust on the bottom of the glass. Like this whole, oh god, I haven't moved my mouse pad in a while other than wiping down the desk. So there's a lot of dust in there, and we need to get rid of it. I might even grab a can of compressed air to speed this along, but I'm definitely going to go at it with a microfiber, get as much of that crap out of there as I can, and I'm going to be replacing the dust filtration after I'm done with the upgrades because this is a little out of hand. So let's go ahead and get started. Just gonna come over here, shut down, boom. We'll wait for that to close up, and I'll start clearing the desk off. Alright, we got the desk cleared off enough that I can pull the glass. It just slides right off from underneath the Xbox, so that's not too much to worry about. We'll pull the glass off. I'm going to set it aside. Luckily, my room is carpet, so I don't have to worry about it cracking or damaging when I set it on the floor. Fairly simple process. Lift up from the cutout and slide it toward me. There it is. And now I can set this off to the side. So you might be able to see here that some of the LEDs are coming unadhered in a few spots. I'm probably going to go ahead and take care of that with some super glue. They were cheap wish.com LEDs, so the adhesive wasn't great. But let's go ahead and start pulling some stuff out of here. And wow, my motherboard looks brown. It's black. It's supposed to be black. I definitely need to get dust filtration back in this thing. Anyway, let's get started pulling stuff out. So we got the Arcadia class jump ship and Cade 6, and there's actually two Cade 6s. I pre-ordered 2 separate orders of the Destiny 2 Legendary Edition to get 2 of these guys. Thanks, GameStop. And you can clearly see how dusty this really is. This whole inside of the desk is supposed to be black. That's not good. So I've got just a microfiber cloth and some window cleaner, glass cleaner. This is automotive grade. It's electronic safe, so I don't have to worry about damaging anything in here. I'm not going to spray it directly on the parts, but I will spray the rag to get the rag wet in order to pick up the dust. And this is going to be a messy, messy process. Alright, I think that's a pretty decent place to stop for now. I'm going to have to clean a lot more underneath the motherboard and such, so let's pull the desk back so I can start unplugging everything from the I/O panels. And you know what, I'm actually going to go ahead and take the Xbox completely off the desk before I move it so I don't throw it on the floor on accident. So let's do that. We'll go ahead and shut it off first, I guess. Alright, there we go. Alright, there's that part. And here's the fun part. So, I've never moved this with the monitors attached. I really don't want to disconnect them. So, we are going to hope for the best. I'm going to pull them in a little bit. And, here we go. That wasn't so bad. Now we can get back here and see what kind of a rat's nest I'm working with. Oh my gosh, it's pretty bad. Alright. Start with video cables. Alright, that's everything unplugged from the motherboard and the graphics card. The dust is really done a number here. I'm probably going to end up having to reroute some things, like the fan controller, which comes out right here, which I think plugs in back here on the new motherboard, but we'll figure that out. And I zip tied that harness to the video card. That's wonderful. And let me grab a screwdriver and we'll start pulling the motherboard screws out. Alright, I got my screwdriver. I'm going to go ahead and start pulling some screws out. And hopefully the standoffs won't unscrew from the desk, because that would be not fun. If I remember right, if I push down on the motherboard, it holds the standoff well enough. Is there a standoff even? Oh, that's right. There is no standoff. See, it's been so long since I built this desk, I forgot how everything is attached. So I've just remembered that I could not find standoffs that would work for this, and ended up doing some funky crap. Being I have a screw, motherboard, and then a nut, and then it's screwed into the desk. So I need to pull the screw out of the desk, but I don't need to unscrew it all the way from the nut. So I'm just putting some downward pressure on the motherboard to keep the nut from spinning, which is allowing me to unscrew the screw from the nut and the desk at the same time, because otherwise the screw pushing against the nut, pushing against the desk, if the nut doesn't stay against the desk, would then push the motherboard up as I unscrew the screw, and that would cause some problems, i.e. a broken motherboard. We don't want that. I guess I technically could remove the screws entirely right now, since I'm switching the motherboard, and you know what, I'm actually going to do just that. Now if you're counting, you'll notice I'm short one screw, and that is because it's located underneath the video card back here, and I would not have been able to install it for the simple fact that I can't put the video card in after the motherboard. So I was unable to even reach that screw. Okay, so that's all 7. What I have to do now is a little funky, just because of the way the video card is installed. So I have to unclip the PCIe, lift the video card and the motherboard up, push the motherboard down, and slide it out of the way. Very, very finicky process here, and I forgot the 4-pin on the 24-pin. There we go. Because you'll notice the video card, once I get this removed, oh my god, all that dust. Oh, those are standoffs. No, they're not. They're spacers. Okay, so that was correct. There's a slot here for this section of the PCIe slot. And I could have cut these off of here, but I wanted to leave the video card 100% stock. I didn't want to modify any of the hard parts, any of the electronic parts. So I just did not want to cut these off. You know, I included the feature into the desk instead. Made it a pain in the butt to put this thing together. I was under the impression that it was going to stay together for a long time. And, you know, 1.5 years, 2 years since I built this desk, that's a pretty decent amount of time. So we're going to go ahead and remove the motherboard the rest of the way. I'm going to set this off to the side. I'm going to leave the hard drive in, but I'll pop the I/O shield out. I'll clean up the rest of this, and then we'll get moving on to the next part. So it's been a fairly painless process so far. If someone else were to attempt this, like if I sold this desk and they wanted to upgrade, I have a feeling they would have had a very, very, very bad time. Alright, that's probably about as good as it's going to get. It's going to get a little bit dusty again, even with the filtration. So I'm not too concerned with that. But I think my next step is going to be to set the motherboard in here and visualize what needs to go where. Like if I shouldn't need to move the power switch, but I may need to move the fan control header cable. So we'll take a look at that, and hopefully if I do need to move it, I can bring it through this hole that's already cut in here, hopefully, or even the CPU power hole, which, by the way, making square holes, not an easy task. I was going at this thing with files for hours to make square holes. It was not fun. Don't recommend, but I would absolutely do this again if someone paid me to. Alright, so I've got the new I/O shield. I'm going to pop that in place just to make sure that all of these holes line up correctly. I'm almost certain they do because I did a lot of research on this thing before I bought it to make sure it was going to work with this stupid idea of a desk. And it goes this way. And obviously the 8-pin power is going to work out. Let's see. Get that lined up. Well, would you look at that? This board is actually about an inch and a half smaller. Am I seeing that correctly? There's no hole there. Why is there no hole there? There's a hole here and a hole here. So it's missing this hole, and this hole got moved up. That's so weird. I guess I'm not gonna drill one single hole. So it's gonna go back together with 6 screws instead of 7, which is instead of 8. But that's okay. Let's see here, system fan. So yes, I am gonna have to move this fan header. I'm assuming I will be able to put it through this hole with the LED strips and the power switch, and maybe route it underneath the back of the video card over to here. Is there anything else that needs to change? It does not look like it. I've still got my SATA port. Power switch will still reach. Video card. Let's make sure the video card is going to line up in the correct spot. Alright, so next step, I'm going to go ahead and put the CPU and the cooler on, and then mount the motherboard into the desk, along with the video card, of course, and then I'll start wiring and rerouting some cables to make this thing work. Let's see. I already know I need to take these off. You know, I half want to go ahead and mount the motherboard before the CPU, which that's extremely backward. If you ask anybody that builds PCs, you should always first test the motherboard with the CPU in it to make sure it posts, and then you're not going to take the CPU back off to install the motherboard, so the CPU is usually on the motherboard after the post and before you install it into the case. But this is a special build, so I'm going to do it a special way. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all the fasteners that I used on the previous build, and I'll show you how exactly I went about installing the motherboard using those fasteners. So this is the fastener I'm working with. I got this at Ace Hardware, a local hardware store, and essentially it's just I believe it's a 4mm threaded Phillips head screw, and this is a threaded ferrule or all thread or a nut or spacer. I don't remember what they had it labeled as, but I'm basically sandwiching the motherboard in between the head of the screw and this spacer, and once these are tightened together enough, there's a decent amount of thread going into the desk. Now if this is a vertical mount, I would want more thread, but since it's laying on its back anyway, gravity's helping me out, and this is just to hold it in place from shifting where it's going to be. And also, it's not going to get handled very much, so I'm not going to be, you know, reaching in here and grabbing the motherboard, or I'm picking the desk up and throwing it over my shoulder and taking it to a friend's house for a LAN party. You know, it's not going to happen. So I'm not too worried about these screws failing as fasteners. The way that I installed them on the previous motherboard was fairly simple. So I just stood this up on its side. Oh no, backplate fell off. I had to install one of the keepers back onto the backplate so it doesn't fall off. But basically you just stand this thing up on its side, you insert the screw, I'm not using this screw hole, so you insert the screw through the motherboard and you screw this on until it's loose. Not too tight, just snug it up a little bit so it doesn't fall off. So I counted wrong earlier. Since this screw is missing and I'm not using this one, I'm going to have 5 total screws in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to go ahead and only run the 5 screws out of the original 8. 1, 2, 3, I'm not using yet, 8. Well, I mean, in this case, 7 for this motherboard, but 8 for my previous one. I'm going to run 5 just for the simple fact that this is a special build again, and the motherboard is laying flat. I will be very cautious installing the RAM not to flex the board too much since there's no support out this way. Same with the 24-pin connector. And back here in this corner, there's not much to worry about, considering the video card is supported by the desk, and the only weight is going to be the PCIe slot on this end where there is a screw and a spacer. So I think it's going to be perfectly fine in my scenario. I'm not going to suggest you do it on your own build unless you know what you're doing and you trust that it's not going to damage any of your components. So let's go ahead and see if this will set down in here. And it will not. So I'm going to have to loosen the nut on the back side to raise the screw up so there's not so much sticking down towards the desk. You can see there's quite a bit of space here, and just because of where the I/O shield is, there's not enough room for this to pivot down and line up with its hole. So I'm going to go ahead and back these out a little ways. And I think it's only going to be these two closest to the I/O port that I need to do this with. And I'm just going to unscrew them until they're flush with the end of the screw. And now I should be able to set this down in here to the point where it lines up. Right now at this moment, all the screws are started into their holes. I cannot start tightening them right away because it'll push on the motherboard in weird ways and flex it. So I'm realizing my mistake. Before it happens, I'm going to go ahead and loosen all of the nuts on the backside, just so it's completely flat against the nuts onto the motherboard and the desk. No protrusion from the screws, everything is level, and I'll just go ahead and do my trick of putting pressure on the board to screw the screw in without turning the nut at the same time. Alright, and there we go, everything's happily in place. Now when I go to install the screws, I just need to make sure it's pushed close enough to the I/O panel that the screw holes line up, and then put some pressure on it, turn the screw in. It'll hold the nut in place, the screw will screw through the nut and into the desk at the same time. And I can snug them all up and it'll be nice and happy. So I don't remember exactly how I did this originally. I'm going to clean up this graphics card a little bit real quick because it's super dusty as well. And then figure out how to get this in here with the motherboard situated all happy like. I'm pretty sure I can just slide the motherboard back and how did I do this before? That's right. Okay, so here's what I have to do. I'm going to seat the graphics card into its slot. Make sure it's locked in. And I install this entire set as a unit. Make sure the cords are out of the way. And they are. And I believe there it is. Let's see if we can get a screw in. One screw in. And that one lined right up. Perfect. So that's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now one good thing about putting pressure on the motherboard with my finger is that I can feel if the motherboard begins to lift due to the screw pushing against the nut and raising it off of the desk. And what I can honestly see is that is not the case. It is not happening. I don't feel the motherboard raising up at all. I don't feel it lowering at all, which means it is nice and level on all four corners. And that is very firmly mounted. Like, I can move the entire desk with just a motherboard. I'm happy with that. The back plate for the CPU cooler may drop down to the desk a little bit, which it did, but the screws are still proud, which is a very good thing. However, getting the cooler on there might be a bit of a task. So let's go ahead and grab the CPU and grab the cooler. I'm going to insert the CPU. Cooler comes pre-installed with some thermal compound on it, and we'll get that dropped in here, and then I'll reroute the fan wire, and I believe I can pass it underneath the back of the graphics card here, plug it right into its own header, and then it's just a matter of power cord, SATA cord, a few other cables, and then start reconnecting everything else, i.e., video connectors, USB ports, audio, the works, LAN cable, but we'll get to that in a few seconds. Puppy cam. And here we go, Ryzen 5 3600. It's lit. Came with a little decal, which is going to stay in this box forever. It's never going to get put on this desk. There's the thermal paste on the cooler. I'm going to set that aside. I brought the RAM over to the desk as well. That'll be for just a moment. And let's identify the odd corner. And it would be this one with a little golden triangle. Let's see, odd corner here is this one. Flat, 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 and then recessed. So gold corner is going to go that way. We'll see how well my phone stays balanced up there for some extra light. This thing's got some weight to it. So gold corner is going to go this way. So you move the arm to away from the socket, lift it up as high as it'll go. That's where it stops. Okay, so gold triangle, this corner. And there it is. And put this arm down. It does take a little bit of pressure to lower that arm, but it is completely normal. I do like this though. I can have the AMD logo readable while it's facing me. That is pretty nice. Thermal paste or compound of some form. Alright, I've got the cooler set down on the CPU, and I don't want to put too much pressure downward while I'm installing the cooler. And since the backplate dropped slightly, what I'm going to do is slide this ruler underneath to lift the backplate up and get at least one or two screws started before I continue. Okay, got the ruler under there. It's holding the backplate up. And the screws are starting. And luckily the design on this, these screws are designed to tighten until they stop. And that's it. They bottom out against the backplate standoffs, and the spring retains any tension needed onto the CPU. Very well thought out design by AMD. I appreciate that a lot. So we're going to go ahead and plug the CPU fan in. See if we can't find a decent place to tuck that wire. That'll do. Beautiful. It's looking good already. We'll plug in the 8-pin CPU power. Okay, tidied that up a little bit. Power switch is PW back there. Perfect. 8-pin plugged back in. 24-pin plugged back in. And the fan control And I'll get my phone light out to make sure it's the correct one. System fan, yep. And that's it. All I need to do is connect the SATA, put the RAM in. And you know what? I don't have any other red accents anymore because I don't have red RAM anymore. So I'm going to swap this out for a black SATA cable that came with the motherboard. This is quite a bit longer and it's got a 90-degree end on it. So I think what I'm actually going to do... Alright, so I'm going to use the straight SATA cable and bend the cable in a way that I can tuck the extra on the outside of the case. I could have rerouted this. Actually, you know what? I might just go ahead and reroute this into this hole. Yeah, let's do that. SATA cable's long enough. Why not reroute it? Okay, pop this end up right here next to the video card. I'm going to plug it in to spot 0. I'll route it as best I can. Yeah, that's pretty clean. Okay, I got that routed really nicely behind the video card power. So it's basically unnoticeable. Looks really good over here now. Make sure the power switch is tucked. I'm gonna take care of the LEDs and stuff off camera. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug everything back in, and then we'll get this booted up. All right, I had to take a quick puppy break, but I'm gonna go ahead and install the RAM real quick. I have no idea how much this costs to buy new. I got it for 20 bucks, never used, from some guy who ordered it thinking he needed it, but actually needed a DDR3. 2400 megahertz, so it's a little bit faster than the RAM I have right now. Again, it's half the capacity, but it's the best I can do currently. So we're going to go ahead and pop these in. I need to install, or sorry, not install, but I need to connect all of my peripherals and monitors and such, and then we get first boot. Hopefully, if we don't get first boot, that'll be a huge bummer. So let's continue. That's going to look really nice when it's 4 8-gig sticks. So now I'm going to go ahead and reach behind the desk and try and plug in as much stuff as I can, but I'm probably going to have to go underneath to get everything plugged in properly. Alright, everything underneath is plugged in. Now it's just a matter of power up, hopefully. So let's give it a try and see if it boots up. Power switch is heading over here. Not a good sign. Let's switch to the onboard HDMI instead of the graphics card and see if that'll do it. So far, no good. Let's give power down, maybe. Power down. And we'll just give it a reset then. Try this again.
Two hours later.
Alright, so after literally hours of troubleshooting, I found the problem. And the problem is this RAM stick. For whatever reason, with this RAM stick installed in any slot on its own or with the other RAM stick, I get a no boot situation, complete black screen. And sometimes the keyboard, or sorry, sometimes the power switch won't even turn the computer off and I have to unplug it. Definitely something wrong with this RAM stick. I just hopped on Amazon to take a look at ordering some, hopefully getting it here quickly, because everything right now is saying 3 weeks out for delivery. So I'm trying to find something with the capacity that I want, at the price range that I want. So we will see. I'm going to be running 4 gigs of RAM until I can get a delivery made. which is really disappointing. Another thing is I was messing around and discovered the motherboard has LED control, but this LED strip or that LED strip is faulty and getting extremely hot, so I have completely unplugged it from the old LED driver module and the motherboard just to make sure I don't damage either of those until I can diagnose which of those strips is bad and replace it. So no colorful RGB, which is disappointing, but at least now I get boot. Yes? Yeah. We'll go into the BIOS and take a look. I'll go through all this and get it all situated. Yep, shows my one hard drive. That's good. I currently have that TV off, and this monitor only works when the Xbox is hooked up because I use the pass-through of the Xbox to display this monitor. Let's see if we can get it into Windows. Fingers crossed. That's a good sign. That's a very good sign. And there we go. We're in Windows. And of course it's April 1st. I would get fooled by my computer on April 1st. I hope you guys appreciate this desk as much as I do, because this thing has been... It was a lot of work. I'll say that. It was a lot of work designing it, building it. Painting it took like 13 hours, and it's already starting to chip paint and whatever. That's not a big deal to me, because it was pretty in all one color when I finished it, and now it's just got some character. There are going to be a few other things I'm going to do. For example, this is connected to a wall plug phone charger brick, and I plug my phone charger into this, but also if I need to charge something else, I've got a good charger to do so. It was originally hot glued here, so it never moved, and the hot glue, loosened up over time. Same with this one, hot glue still stuck to the back of it. So I'm going to reattach those. This is just an extension off of the motherboard for my keyboard and mouse dongle. And then down here I've got another USB extension. This one was hot glued here. I need to reattach that. And now that I no longer need to use a USB hub, because I have like 3 extra USB ports on the motherboard now, I'm going to be adding 2, if not 3 more USB extensions, and they'll all be in a line here on the leg of the desk, so I can plug whatever I need to in. I don't think that's going to stick out too much. I'm going to play around with it, because that might be a little too sticky-outy. So I may end up attaching them and gluing them more like this, vertically. I think that would look nicer, and then I can just unplug and plug in just like that. So that's what I may end up doing. The headphones are wired into a USB port on the back of the motherboard, and this is all the cord I got, which kind of sucks. And then this is my DIY chat cable for my Xbox controller, and this allows me to listen to game sound and then use my XLR mic to output microphone sound to my controller through the ports on the back of the motherboard. Alright, so let's go ahead and get the desk pushed back up against the wall, get the Xbox connected back up, get the glass back on, get this to where I can use it as a desk again, and then we'll sign off the end of the video. Alright, and there we have it. All the monitors are working. Obviously the LED strips are still scuffed. Got the new motherboard, new CPU, 1 new RAM stick. Let's see, Task Manager, that opened really fast. 80% memory. Oh my god. What's using all my memory? Chrome. Shocker. Discord's using a buttload too. Alright, well, at least 3% CPU usage when normally I used to idle at 30. So that's a really, really good improvement. Let's click the performance tab. Yeah. It's already boosting up to 4 gigahertz, which is awesome. 2.5 out of 4 gigs. I really need to get some RAM. But other than that, I mean, I'm super happy. It seems to be working quite fast. Alright, so voice meter, which previously took up anywhere between 8 and 12% of my CPU, is using a nice and cool 3 to 6%. OBS is using 4.3%, just idling open right now. I'm going to enable the Elgato. The Elgato is what used up the most of my CPU. So let's enable that and see what it does to my usage. Alright, that's some really good news there. So with the Elgato running at 1080p 60, I'm at 34% for CPU usage total. And the Elgato is using 30% for the Elgato. That thing is a usage hog. That thing is a processing hog. I don't understand why. But 1080p 60, only 50% of my CPU. I used to max out my CPU at 100% just by opening OBS. But now I've got Twitch open, I've got OBS open, Discord. I got it on 1080p 60 instead of 1270 by 720 or whatever it is, 1280 by 720. And 30 FPS. We've got to bump up to 60 FPS. So that's a very, very good indication. I'm going to have a lot less problems in my future. Alright, and that's what we're going to call this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know I did. I love having this desk, I love working on this desk. It was an awesome project. I finally get to experience a real computer instead of a toaster, which is going to be super exciting. I've got a few things I got to work on, like USB extensions, some cable management back behind the desk, getting new RAM. But that's all going to come on its own time. So thank you so much for watching. If you liked, hit like. If you didn't like, don't hit dislike. I'm kidding. Go ahead. If you liked the video, make sure you hit like. If you liked the video, make sure you hit like. Leave a comment. Tell me your favorite part of this build, or what you like best about the desk, or if I'm an idiot. I don't care what you say. And consider subscribing if you haven't already. Thanks for watching. I hope everyone has a great day. Say bye, Riley. No, I'm going back to sleep.